LA's eviction rules provide cover to bad tenants while leaving landlords to shoulder the cost. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the fate of small landlords up in Los Angeles who are basically stuck with these bad tenants who are protected by all of the eviction protections that Los Angeles has in place. Now, obviously, Los Angeles is an extremely far left-leaning place, and there are so many anti-landlord rules in place there right now, especially after the pandemic. Now, they still have eviction moratorium and protections going all the way up until 2023. So landlords are having an extremely difficult time there. They're having to basically be homeless shelters and low-income housing providers for people because the city decided that, hey, you're rich, you're a landlord, so you need to pay to keep these tenants in your properties indefinitely. Now, as I covered in another article, only 16% of rental relief funds have actually been paid out to landlords, okay? And that's completely ridiculous. And that's for the state of California. So if only 16% of funds have gotten out there, and it takes at least 4 months of waiting before a landlord is able to even get those funds, and a lot of tenants aren't even eligible to get them, that means that landlords are just stuck with these bad tenants until these eviction protections end. And that is gonna bankrupt or financially destroy just a ton of these landlords. What a ridiculous kind of situation that this is getting into. I mean, I don't even know what to say, but I shouldn't be surprised, because when it comes to California, it seems like they just want to strip people's property rights away. They want to put into place a ton of these socialist, ridiculous policies that, make it so that people become 100% dependent upon the government. And it's just a atmosphere where a lot of people should say, hey, I don't want to invest here anymore. I want to go somewhere where, hey, we're treated with respect, and they actually follow the Constitution, and they believe in capitalism and not socialism. So yeah, come to the Midwest where I invest, and at least here there's still hope that you can make money as a landlord. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Do you think that California is making a huge swing into socialism? Do you think that they're going to further erode property rights and eventually go into the point where, hey, the government has total control over housing? Yeah, I know this is a stretch, okay? And I know that right now the state still sort of has to follow the Constitution and all of that, but I believe that they are literally pushing towards a socialist system of housing, especially where the government owns all of the housing or controls all the housing to an extent that landlords and private companies basically won't be able to make any money renting properties out. Okay, that's my personal belief. I think that's what they're moving towards, and it will push the whole country into socialism if we see this sort of thing happen to our property rights. And that's why I am so opposed to it. That's why I'm 100% against it. Now, this article, it's coming from LAist.com, and it says, LA small landlords were promised help if tenants stop paying rent, why some still have no relief. Yeah, and some can mean quite a few, especially when it comes to small landlords. The larger landlords, they're a little bit better able to weather the storm because they have larger emergency reserves. They have more units to make up for lost rent from, the ones who aren't being able to pay. And, they will hopefully be able to survive. But a lot of the small landlords who own one, maybe two properties, if they lose 50% of their income or 100% of their income, they're just done. Okay, so let's get into this article and see what it says. 2 years into the pandemic, hundreds of thousands of Southern Californians are still behind on their rent. For now, state and local laws protect them from eviction, for failure to pay, and the state has stepped in with a $5.2 billion rent relief program, which I already said only 16% of that funding has actually made it out to landlords right now. And that the rent relief program is not helping. Okay, it's not helping everyone who needs the help. But many small landlords still haven't seen the money. Some have been completely cut off from the promised help, said Diane Robertson, a co-founder of LA's Coalition for Small Rental Property Owners. They applied and have not received rent, she said. I do believe there is money somewhere, but it's not getting to the people who need it. Landlords are finding themselves shut out because government rent relief programs require tenants to be involved in the application process. In some cases, tenants refuse to apply. Others earn too much to qualify. Some small landlords say waiting in vain for rent relief has left them financially wrecked. Yeah, and if tenants are required to be part of the application process and they don't get along with a landlord that they are renting from, or they don't want to talk to the landlord, or they just want to screw their landlord over, then the landlord can't get anything. Now, on the other hand, I remember a while back I was going over articles and they said, if the landlord refuses to apply, the tenant, in a lot of situations, and this was in California, the tenant can apply and get the rent relief sent directly to them. And I was like, well, that doesn't even make any sense. So why would the state give the rent relief to the tenant? Think about it for a second, okay? So the tenant stays in a property for, let's say, 6 months, rent free. Okay, the tenant's rent is $1,000 a month. So they've already gotten $6,000 worth of free rent. And then the government comes in and steps in and says, well, the tenant can apply for rent relief and get it and get it paid directly to them. So I'm like, well, then, the government then is going to give $6,000 of rent money, just straight cash, to the tenant. So not only did they get to stay somewhere for 6 months for free, but they get $6,000 check on top of that. That's idiotic. Okay, you're paying them to stay somewhere. I mean, they get to stay somewhere for free, and they get a bonus check on top of that from the government. This is why these rent relief programs don't work. Meanwhile, the landlord gets nothing in that situation. The taxpayer has to foot the bill for, basically everyone gets screwed except for this tenant who gets a bonus check for screwing over a landlord. What a ridiculous situation that is. They don't even allow a landlord to be able to apply for the rent relief and get the money, and yet they allow the tenant to apply for the money and get it. They created this mess with stupid government thought patterns. They should have realized it would be abused, and they never did. They should have realized that it would be caught up in this sort of bureaucracy, and they never did. They should have talked to the landlords about how they could have made these rent relief programs work, and they never did. They should have never implemented eviction protections that violated the Constitution, but they did anyway. So they did all this stuff without talking to landlords, without talking to the people who are directly involved, and the end result is that landlords ended up in financial distress, and landlords ended up getting screwed over. But let's continue with the article, because I am on a rant, okay? With mask mandates going away and businesses reopening, Robertson says small landlords are being saddled with an unfair burden. There is simply no other industry that has been forced to do what property owners have been forced to do, she said. Losing rent could be devastating without aid. In a handheld iPhone video, the woman recording can't stop saying, "Oh my God." She's trying to make her way through an unoccupied apartment overflowing with junk. "You can't even get through to the bedroom," she exclaims. The video shows laundry baskets stacked high in the living room, piles of trash all over the kitchen, and a computer monitor gathering dust in the shower. Like, "I don't know where they sleep," she says. The woman recording the video is Lori. She lives downstairs, and this video was taken the first time she stepped inside the chaotic Studio City apartment. And I've shown pictures in a lot of my thumbnails of, just the trash and the complete mess that a lot of tenants leave in their units. Okay, so what you had in these situations was you had these tenants and they would stay in these apartments, right? They would have been evicted in normal times, in a normal situation. They would have been evicted a long time prior, but they threw all of these eviction protections into place and they prevented landlords from removing these bad tenants. And they say, oh, no, we still had exceptions so that landlords could evict, and yet they would close the courts down completely so that nobody could be evicted. You know what I mean? The situation they put landlords in during the whole pandemic nonsense was just wrong. And that's all the only point that I'm trying to make here. So, you know, what we end up with is small mom and pop landlords. Their units got trashed. They had to spend thousands of dollars cleaning them up afterwards. They're out tens of thousands of dollars in lost rent from when the tenants weren't paying, and there's no way that they can collect rent relief. And that's why I am just so frustrated, especially with the state of California, with these very progressive places. That's why I'm telling landlords to stop investing there and to get the heck out. But I'm not even going to finish this article. You know, this is, I'm just trying to highlight. I'm just trying to point out the fact that, hey, landlords in some parts of the country, they are still suffering. Yes, I am able to still go through the eviction process here in Nebraska and in Missouri where I invest, and we're back to normal. But in a lot of parts of the country, that just isn't the case.